quantitative data, but something that'll help us sort of figure out what kind of training people have gotten. I don't know, I didn't give you a heads up, but Barb or Takura, do either of you want to talk a little bit about the survey and what we're hoping to get at, and how?
Right. So I'll try to be concise here, thorough. So it appears that despite all the work that we did, people either do not know about the reforms. Yeah, I think that is the bottom line, but we want to figure out, in fact, using data, not just, best guesses and go off on gut feelings. And if people do not know, we'd like to know if this is limited to a particular jurisdiction, or perhaps it's the defense bar or prosecutors who don't know. So we put our heads together, came up with a list of questions, and I think it gets to the heart of all of those concerns. Because if we don't know what people don't know, then our efforts are essentially, we've been wasting a lot of time coming together. And I don't think that's the case. While there are, and if the news had been reaching people like we hoped it would, I think there would have been many more cases that had found their ways up to the Hall of Justice, and positive results would have been coming on back down. So we just want to figure out what people need to know and where, so that we can share this fantastic information. So we're just trying to figure out what the disconnect is. And again, instead of anecdotal stories and such, we want to know based on statewide survey. And I think the survey is such that it'll be anonymous, but again, it'll let us know where people are not receiving information and what it is. So there are questions that will actually test people's knowledge. Based on this scenario, I'll say this, the way the questions are laid out, the first and third question, first of all, will tell us who's not receiving information and where that may be. And then if they actually know and have paid it, if they've actually attended these trainings and the information is actually sunk in, then the following questions should be fairly easy for them to answer. So I think it's a fantastic tool, because they will tell on themselves the further they get into the survey if they're not being completely honest.
Barb, do you want to add anything? Not really, no. Emily, what's our timeline? When are we hoping to send it out, and how are we getting it to everybody we hope will answer it?
Yep, so Takura provided me contact information for TDM, and then we were going to reach out to PM as well and see if we can get some distribution lists from them. And we're hoping to send it out at the beginning of next week and give them about 7 days to complete it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Anything else, Emily, that we should report about the survey?
No, I put a link to the survey in the chat. If you want to take a look at it, just please don't respond to it, because that will mess with our results a little bit. But you're welcome to click through. Some of those questions do have skip logic. So when you first open the survey, it may only look like 3 questions. Once you click that third question, it's going to open it up further for you. But
for
if
the rest of the questions,
yeah, if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me, but we are planning on distributing it the beginning of next week. So
that's our goal. Rep Yancey.
Thank you. I may have missed this, but is it going to both prosecutors and defense attorneys? What about judges?
This specific survey, the way that the questions are worded, it is not going to judges. The initial intent was to kind of gauge the attorney's knowledge of the reforms, because we're not seeing those objections and appeals that we anticipated we would be seeing. So just the way that the questions are worded, I would not distribute this specific survey to judges.
Yeah, it's not quite right for judges, but Rep Yancey raises a good point. Like, is there a way to get this, similar or the same information about judges? What do they know about? I'm how do I put this nicely? I'm a little worried about what the response rate we get from judges and what they'd actually tell us. I have a feeling we'll get better information from attorneys who I think we'll get better information. That's not to say we shouldn't try to figure out what information judges have gotten either from them, or maybe alternatively, we could go to the leadership of the judicial associations and ask what.
That's what or perhaps just do, perhaps we can do a presentation to some of the leaderships of the associations, the District Court Judges Association, the Black Judges Associations. I know it's probably, I don't know if we have time for that or what that timeline looks like, but perhaps we could just do a presentation so that means that we are not saying you don't know, but
Yeah.
just in case you know, here's the information.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, I think, Emily, we could check with Ryan, maybe you already know, and Tom Boyd about what, I know that Ryan and Tom did a bunch of trainings on the changes, but it was kind of when they were new. And I don't always trust judges judges have a lot going on and they're busy and.
You want to say you judges to read? Is that what you wanted to say?
So what I will suggest is, given our short timeline, these are good things for us to include in our final report as recommendations, right?
Yeah,
So-
that's a good point. I think that might be I think Rep Yancey's onto something. I think the judges definitely need a refresher. That doesn't necessarily mean that every one of them will even, learn from the refresher, but I think that doesn't mean we don't try. I'm sorry, Takora, you have your hand up. You probably have some information here.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, and perhaps this is a conversation I have with Emily after this, but I'm the secretary for this upcoming year for the Criminal Law Council, and we have equal representation, as well as the Criminal Jurisprudence and Practice Committee. So, those organizations, CDAM definitely, we'll get that to defense attorneys, but I want to make sure that prosecutors get it as well. So either as secretary or we can get it to the chair. This survey is something I'd be happy to ensure that gets out to the Criminal Law Council, and then the prosecutors can, because we have a PAM representative on the board for the Criminal Law Council, so that may be an idea, because I just want to ensure the widest dissemination possible.
Yeah, that's another good idea to include in the report, Emily, like as another place where we can be getting the information to the different stakeholders, I think. Yeah.
Takura, if you want to reach out to me after the meeting, we can talk about a contact person over there and start getting that information out.
Yes, certainly.
Barb.
So I know that the court just released its May training for judges. That's the mandatory training. So that might be a place where Rep Yancey's idea can be instituted to include a session there. And we might also be able to include the survey results, which would be really interesting that they, hence why maybe we're doing this refresher training course.
Yeah, and honestly, there have been, there are new appointees or people who didn't make the last training. And so, there's always a nice way to put why we're telling you this again. We're not only telling you this again because you don't seem to be listening. We're telling you, you might have missed it. I don't know. So I do think that's a good idea. I haven't seen the agenda for the May meeting, but they're always looking for ways to add content that is very practical. And for the judges who have these dockets, it's very practical. And most people want to know. So the ones that don't want to know aren't going to go to the training at all. So that they're a different problem. So those are good ideas, great ideas. Thank you. Melissa.
Yeah, just one quick thing to add as I think one of the only non-lawyers, non-judges on this call. One thing that you might think about in terms of messaging, it's not, I think we've been having good conversations and there've been good steps forward. And we also know a lot more this far out from the implementation. And so the training can really be about, you know, talking about what's happened so far and what needs to happen going forward. And not necessarily like, we're not really seeing what we need to see. So we're trying this again, but really kind of couch it in terms of, this is an update and we've seen great things and we've seen some interesting things. And so we're talking through it now and catching up with everyone again. So I want to, and in terms of our report, I think it's the same thing. I think one of the things we've learned is it's really difficult to get this information out in an actionable way for people to move on. And so as much as at the beginning, we wanted to dream, what's the data we're going to grab and how are we going to tell this picture? It's even harder than that to do it, not just because the data are all spread out, but because this is a huge behavior change thing. This is a monumental change that we're trying to enact statewide, and we're realizing, let's circle back and see where we've missed some things and have those conversations again.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. And I am today years old when I learned that you're not a lawyer. So, wow.
I just like to listen to you all. I have a PhD, but it's in public health, so it doesn't always transfer for these conversations.
Got it.
Well, if that's the case, I'll be sure to start keeping track of my time so we can bill you, because that's what I normally do when people listen to me talk.
Perfect. Thanks, Takora.
Okay, so these are all good ideas and they kind of actually moved us into the next agenda item, which is we wanted to hear about any other thoughts for what the final report should look like. And by we, I mean Emily is going to start putting that together. And so we wanted to make sure to include any ideas from all of you. Are there other things that you think we should be thinking about for the final report? Barb?
So I think I may have said this before, just in general, is like moving forward when a recommendation could be, you know, like when the legislature makes these changes, that they give sufficient time for the changes to be implemented. I mean, this was passed and literally some of the changes went into effect, I think like 30 or 60 days, you know, 90 days later. Which is a lot for a court to pivot on when you're changing forms and trying to, you know, get to the judges first and then the court administrators and then the probation agents. And, you know, in Illinois, when they did their stuff, they literally had like a year and a half to do the implementation. And that's coming up in January and they're still not ready. I mean, so you got to kind of find that sweet spot. Too much time is not good, but, you know, being realistic that there's a lot of moving parts, that those implementation dates really need to be more thoughtful.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Being just kind of clear-throated about that makes a difference. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Oh, you're okay, Nancy, go ahead. Yeah.
Raise my hand, but as a legislator, I just want to make sure that when these changes do occur or when the bills are up for a vote on House or Senate floor, that's brought to the attention again, because I think it's just almost automatic that it's in immediate effect takes place. We did have to go back and do some changes for like raise the age, also with the expungement. So just making sure that is in constant conversations. Obviously, I won't be in the legislature anymore. And then secondly, I wanted to make sure that we reiterated, I've had quite a few issues as it relates to expungements, but where there are incomplete iChats because someone gets arrested. We talked about this, and I know one of the sheriffs had talked about this in terms of final reporting as well, where someone gets arrested and there's a warrant in another city, another county, and no one picks them up. And so that warrant stays open and active. And now it's really interfering with not just the fact that they just have this open warrant out and at any given time they can be arrested for something that happened 10 years ago, but also it's affecting their ability to have their records expunged.
Yep, agree.
Yeah, I think
Emily, other things that we should get input on that I haven't thought of?
Barb, did you have something?
I was just gonna say, I think we did kind of talk about that as a recommendation before with the warrants, is trying to get courts to clean up outstanding probationary show cause warrants or any kind of warrants that, you know, are out there that might just are now on a charge that is no longer even jailable. And we've seen that in a couple of cases here where they owed money, they're hauled into court, and then now some of the judges are using like contempt of court. It's like, oh my God, you know, it's 10 years old. What are we doing here? Like, what kind of justice are we hoping to enact, right? So like to clean those warrants up, and I don't know if there would have to be some kind of process or guidance for courts to do that, you know, to bring warrants maybe, you know, that have been outstanding for more than 10 years, try to, you know, contact those individuals, bring forward a motion, you know, notice the prosecutor and defense, you know, to dismiss those warrants, because if someone hasn't come in contact with the police in over 10 years, I think, you know, they should be given some kind of, you know.
Yeah,
No,
it's a
I think-
great idea. And I'm not sure exactly what the recommendation is, but it'd be nice if courts could just take that on and clean those up on their own, right? Like I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how we frame that recommendation, but it would be it could make a big difference for some of those
Right.
people.
Or,
Yeah.
or at least warrants that are on charges that are no longer jailable.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that would be yeah, those shouldn't be hanging people up, right? Right. Yeah.
So the other thing that I know has been a big topic of discussion with this group is the challenge to getting good data. We had talked a lot about making recommendations about unified data and data availability and things along those lines. So I don't know if there's any thoughts, like specific recommendations around data or any additional conversation that you want to have.
Of course, I have something.
Yeah.
And only because I mean, I know, or at least I believe that Scale got money to help courts implement the JIS system to work towards going towards a unified court system. However, there's still courts that are, you know, doing active RFPs for case management systems. And, you know, maybe a recommendation that if they choose not to use the JIS system, that they have to make sure that there's an API or some mechanism by which data can be easily relayed to the court,
Right.
right?
Right.
And not like we have to do a report or a file, you know, an FTP, and then you upload it and then it's extracted and downloaded. It like should be an automatic, you know, API. So a recommendation that courts should look at that if they're not going to the JIS, but really the recommendation should be that everyone's on the same system, I would think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you know, I think the funding for the statewide system that we got this year will help us. It'll just give us bigger carrots and sticks. But I think if we have a recommendation from this group, that's helpful as well. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right, anything else?
So we don't have a meeting scheduled again until December, which is essentially going to be our final meeting. So my thoughts, and I think I kind of conveyed this a little bit in the email that I sent out, are to start drafting that final report, get a draft out to this group sometime in November for everybody to review, send over any additions, corrections, suggestions for edits. And then that way, when we convene at our final meeting in December, we can vote on the report itself. And then if there's anything else we need to tie up, that's kind of what our timeline is looking at. So I don't know if there's any other things that you want to add to the discussion or any other agenda items that need to be addressed between now and our final meeting in December, being that we don't have that November meeting. Okay, well then that is the plan going forward, so.
I mean, you know where to find us if you have ideas in the meantime, though. It's not like we're not, Emily and I are not going to, you know, Polynesia for a beach vacation until December 2nd. We'll be around, so.
yes, please feel free to reach out. Any suggestions, any questions, anything you would like to see in the final report. I'm just an email away, so please feel free to reach out.
Regarding that vacation, if either of you need a bellhop, I'm happy to. If I'll be that guy, I'll be that guy.
Takura, you are always sacrificing for others. I love that about you. Yeah. All right, thank you, everyone. 9:25, we'll see you on December 2nd. Have a great day. Have a
All right,
good
bye-bye,
weekend.
thanks.